Howdy everyone, welcome to my live show. My name is Al Longoria. I am with Longoria House Dog Training here in Houston, Texas. Hey, really appreciate each and every one of you guys that's joining in tonight. I got a couple of things that I need to take care of right before we get started. But if you're watching this after the fact, please drop your questions down below. Let me know. Howdy Dustin, how you doing, man? Yeah, drop your questions down below and then we'll get to those. I've got a list full of things that I'd like to go over tonight, but at any point, if I see that a question's been asked, then I'm definitely going to answer those. So just bear with me. But hey, go hit that share button. Let your friends know that we've started the live show, and thanks again for watching. So give me just a sec. And a couple of things that I have to do whenever I start this. I always want to make sure that the transmission of these is going pretty smoothly. And so, yep, I see the link. So then what I've got to do with the link is I actually have to copy that link, and I've got to put it in one of my events. I'm kind of choking up right here. There we go. So there's the event for this evening. It's happening now. I'm going to go in there and post in there. Let everybody know that we're starting. We are live now. There we go. We are live now. Exclamation point and paste. There it is. Post that, and it looks like I'm ready. So again, hey guys, my name's Al Longoria. I am a dog trainer in the Houston area. Hey, thanks so much for spending your Wednesday night with me. I know there's a lot going on in our city. There's an Astros game going on. The Rockets are tipping off. I'm a huge Rockets fan. But hey, appreciate you coming in. Hey, feel free to drop a question. I'll be sure to answer it, even if you have to go back and check on the score in the game. But I've got several things that I want to go over tonight as we get started. On my list, let's see. So number one on my list is I want to talk about how to destroy anxiety. The second thing that I have is how do you get your dog to behave when you're not home? That's a pretty good question. And topic number three that I'm covering is how do you get your dog to actually go to their bed after they've heard the doorbell ring and actually get them to stay. So we're going to be starting with all those. Hey Mary, hi Mom, love you very much. Thanks for joining. Hey Mike, I hope you're doing well. Thanks for joining in. And if you guys haven't already, be sure to go down there and hit that share button. Share this with your friends. So I'm just going to do one more thing over here so that way I don't miss anybody's question. Grab that and grab this. Okay, there it is. Yep, I can see everybody. All right, so how in the world do you actually go about destroying anxiety? Well, let me define anxiety first. Anxiety, by definition, means that you're looking into the future and you are anticipating bad things and you become nervous about those bad things that are coming. You know, dogs, humans, so many different creatures actually deal with anxiety. For us, it's really interesting as a human, the way that we deal with anxiety. There's a lot of different ways, but the one major way that your brain deals with anxiety is in believing that something good actually might happen. And that word, by definition, that, hey, something good might happen, is hope. Hope is the actual way to defeat and destroy anxiety once and for all. As a species, like I said, it's so unique that a human is actually the only species that I know of that can actually imagine, a hopeful situation. So when it comes to dogs that have anxiety problems, here's really what needs to happen. The dog actually has to have a real solution that solves the anxiety, okay? So what does that mean in practicality? Because we're talking all this kind of psychological mumbo jumbo, right? Well, in practicality, really what it means is that you have to be training your dog and good things have to be happening in your dog's mind that the dog believes, oh, every time I do this, that something good eventually is going to happen if I just control myself and I put up with whatever I'm doing right now, will actually begin to, over time, destroy anxiety. When I train with a dog that has a lot of anxiety, what I like to do for their mind is I like to give the dog's brain a very simple problem. In that problem, I let the dog kind of have a zone in the middle between right and wrong. I want to show the dog that one particular thing that it does, is actually going to lead to more reward and more comfort. You know, the path of least resistance and the path of reward. I want to show the dog that, hey, if you do this one thing, that's always going to make the comfort level and the level of pleasure go up. But then on the opposite side of the place where I give the dog to make the decision, I show them that when you go there, things actually become more frustrating and that things can actually begin to become uncomfortable, that there's pressure there and you want to avoid pressure and we want to avoid frustrating circumstances. So as we put the dog in between these two things, I like to call them a red and a blue zone, and the dog sees those, I actually want the dog to experience the frustration and some mild pressure, because then when I show them how rewarding it is, that it's comfortable and pleasurable, and they get to contrast the decision, the dog begins to be like, oh, I need to make this choice right here to become calmer or to become more focused or whatever skill it is that you're working with your dog, either way, and that they begin to receive reward. If you've ever seen a dog doing competition heeling, one of the things that I like is how happy the dog looks, but there's no food anywhere, there's no ball anywhere, there's nothing. But the dog is just anticipating, is hoping that the ball or the toy or whatever it is that the reward is going to appear. But with anxiety, really what you think what anxiety is that your brain gets trapped into thinking that the bad thing is coming. The boogeyman is around the corner. The witch is going to get me. My owners are going to yell at me, whatever the anxiety is. And so then there's never been an opportunity for the dog to be able to see like, oh, I just have to do this one thing. And I know that when I do this one thing, that the reward will begin to eventually come my way. So how do you actually do that? You just have to actually start training on a regular basis. If you're actually training the skill of staying, like I've got a dog in a stay right here, right next to me. Okay, so I've got Fritz right there. He's in a stay. And as he stays, there's going to be reward coming. His reward is going to come at the very end of this live show. But when he was a puppy, maybe every 10, 15 seconds, every 30 seconds, every 30 seconds to a minute, things were progressing. He made a mistake. I didn't reward him for a moment. I used my leash to put him back into the stay. And then the reward kept coming again. Eventually, you see that the dog is staying there longer and longer periods of time, and you're destroying anxiety. So if you're having problems with anxiety for your dog, where your dog is like you're leaving the house and the dog is destroying all these things, one thing you want to do is when you are home, you want to teach your dog how to be calm in your presence. Because that's really what's going to help your dog to begin to deal with, being separated from you, that, hey, even when you're in your home, you're going to ask them not to move and to stay still, and that they're going to have to deal with controlling their emotions. And as you contrast those two emotions of, hey, that's frustrating and maybe slightly uncomfortable, or hey, this is comfortable and pleasurable, then your dog is going to begin to make choices towards that. Okay, so kind of moving on from this, but it's still very similar. How do you get your dog to behave when you're not home? This is a really good one, and I want to share something with you guys that's going on in my home. I'm actually in my dining room, but my kitchen is over to this side over here, and not too far from me, I would say maybe about 8 feet from me, there's a trash can. And in my trash can lid is one of these, revolving doors. It kind of has a lid on there, but it's got a revolving door. So Gabby, I found that when I'm home, that I'll be sitting in the living room, maybe working on something, that I'll hear her little nose go and tap the trash can lid to see like, hey, what's inside of there? And then every time she does that, I kind of say, no, don't do that. But she never actually gets in trouble. I just say, hey, get out of there. She never gets in trouble. So now what started to happen is when I go to church on Sunday mornings and nobody is here in my home, we're coming back home and the trash is getting spilled out. And it's even happened a couple of times when I normally was trusting my dogs to behave well. And now they're starting to do things that maybe we don't want them to do. So the first thing is can your dog actually not get in trouble, period, when you are home? If your dog isn't getting trouble, period, when you are home, then you should begin to trust them when you're walking out the door. Now, when I first start trusting any dog, I'm gone maybe 5 minutes, I'm gone for 10 minutes, maybe I'm gone for 20 or 30. And then I come back and I observe, hey, did you do anything? If I leave my dog, let's say that I make my dog responsible for being home alone for 15 minutes. I leave and come back and they did something bad, they can't get in trouble. I have to actually take a pass at them and say, like, okay, you still need more work at understanding that my home is a place of calmness and that you have to control yourself when I'm away, or even when you're in my presence. If your dog is constantly running around and doing crazy things inside your home, that's not a good dog to leave loose. So it's really about just that practice thing, that showing the dog that being there in your presence or without your presence and staying calm is really the solution to have your dog behave when they're not home. But let me give you one more thing. If you're a puppy owner right now, you've just brought a puppy into your home, you've got to head off to work and nobody's going to be home, build a playpen for your dog. If you build the playpen, you can put all sorts of things for your dog to do in there, and then whatever your dog does in there, be indifferent about it. Because if you are indifferent, then the dog's like, oh, okay, this is just a place where I get to be a dog. But when your dog comes out of that playpen, then you begin to teach the dog, hey, what are you actually going to be responsible for inside the house? What are the major skills that I want you to learn? You know, how should you know if you should be paying attention to me? All right. Well, I'm going to move on to the next topic, guys. Hey, if at any point you have any questions about any of the material that I'm covering, I'd love to hear what you guys are thinking. You know, what is something that you would like to improve? What's something that maybe your dog is doing a really bad job of? Or maybe, hey, maybe you need some help and you know, like, hey, how in the world do I actually communicate to my dog to do this particular thing? So I'd love to hear any of your questions. All right, so here's the next one. How do you get your dog to go and stay on their bed and they're loose when the doorbell rings? You know, this is a really good one. And I actually got some ideas in my head, some new ideas about how to deal with this. But here's the thing, the very simple thing that I want to distill it down to. Your dogs understand that when the doorbell rings, okay, if you haven't trained your dog, if the doorbell rings, everybody runs to the front door. And then if everybody's running and then you say, hey, everybody immediately become calm, it's a pretty tough thing to do, especially if you're only using your voice. So here's what I recommend you do, and here's what I like to do. Whenever I actually get a new puppy, I want to schedule something like a Bible study, or schedule something like, a dinner with some friends, have some neighbors come over, and I want to schedule it for several weeks as I'm in the process of setting my foundation for my dog. So one thing I want to do is I obviously want to have my leash, and I also want to have the dog's meal anytime that we're going to be practicing this. So at first what I do is let's say my friends are coming over at 6 p.m., I'll have them ring the doorbell, and then I begin to use their leash and their food to show them that, hey, every time that the doorbell rings, we're going to go up there. It's okay if you bark. I like for my dogs to bark at the door. And then I'm going to ask you to come back. I'm going to reward that. And then I'm also going to continue to reward the thing I've been teaching you, which is to stay on your place. And we're going to be getting repetitions of that from the dog, that they go to the door. I ask them to come back using my leash and their food. I reward that individual behavior, and then I get them onto their place. I teach them to settle right there. I reward them for that. If they're doing a good job of that as people are coming into your home, which is really the key to teaching the dog what the doorbell really means, then I begin to ask those people to reward the dog for actually doing the thing that I wanted them to do. So, hey, the dog has come back. I've rewarded it. The dog is on its place. I've rewarded it. Now I'm going to give my friends and my family and my guests the opportunity to reward the dog, so that way they can see, like, oh, this is the thing that you've been wanting me to do. Now, how do you fail at this? Well, it's real simple to fail at this. Just leave your dog loose, have the dog run up to the front door and just start yelling in English, which is a foreign language to your dog. And that's the quickest way to mess up training your dog, how to come away from the door and how to become calm. But using your leash, using the dog's food, not talking too much, and then showing the dog those things is really going to make a world of difference. Eventually, you're going to be able to take off the leash. You're going to be able to get rid of the food. But it really takes diligence and persistence, which shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. It's really going to take diligence and persistence to really show the dog that, hey, this is the thing that I want you to do. And at some point, they're going to already know they're not going to need the leash and the food. But it does take a lot of diligence to be able to train this particular one. All right. Hey, for those of you guys that don't know, I'm gonna jump over here on my iPad for a second. You know, I'm doing a lot of different things to really try to help you, raise your dog. If you're watching us and you've never trained with us or anything like that, and maybe the budget is a little tight right now, but you're needing to make some progress with your dogs, well, these Facebook Lives is one of the things that I like to do to be able to give back and to help you and your family to have the best relationship possible. But I've got other things beyond that. So I don't know if you've been to my website, but that's LongoriaHaus.com. Haus is spelled the German way, Haus. But if you go to my website, what you're going to see is that there's a link on there. There's a link on there for free training. Now, for some reason, it's not loading up right now. Oh, that's because I mistyped the URL. There we go. But if you go to the website, you're going to see on the top section there's like the hamburger, the menu. It's going to say dog training services, and on there it's going to say free dog training. If you just go there, there's all sorts of different things that we're doing to be able to help you, raise your dog. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go ahead and post that link on here, just that way you guys can have it. But hey, go visit that. Go visit that, and hey Matt, good to see you guys. Hope you're doing well. But go visit that. There's so many things. We're doing stuff on Facebook. We're doing stuff on Instagram. I'm doing a ton of virtual reality videos. I'm really trying to push myself, trying to get 3 VR videos. If you haven't watched any of these VR videos, they're really very cool and very immersive. And what I like about them is that you can have a unique perspective of what it's like to train with us without actually having us in your home. Or if you're a client and you know how much I love to talk, if you're a client and you're trying to remember, like, man, what in the world did Al actually say? You can just go there and watch those. So those videos are on my YouTube channel. If you haven't already subscribed, I would really encourage you to subscribe to our page. Like I said, we're trying to put out about 3 videos a week right now of some really meaningful and useful content. I've got even more exciting stuff that I've got planned that's coming out in the next few months. That's just, I really hope is going to really bring you in closer into the dog training sessions and help you really visualize what it is that you need to be doing to raise your dog. But hey, all those resources are there. Make sure that you check them out. Hey, and if I could ask a favor of everybody that's watching this right now, or hey, you're watching this after the fact, there's that share button down there. It would mean so much to me if you'd go down there and hit the share button, because as a small business, we rely on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube to be able to spread the word. Now, yes, we do advertise and do all those types of things. We hand out business cards. But every time that you share, because of the power of the internet, it really makes people aware that we even exist. As many of you guys probably know, or maybe you don't, we don't actually have a physical location. Our office is your home, and it's the world at large, because we really like training in reality and in virtual reality too. All right, guys. So, okay. So I've got the next question. We actually received this from somebody that was watching, somebody that actually asked us a question on our Alexa skill. So the question was, how do I prevent my dog from jumping up? So there's a lot of different ways to prevent a dog from jumping up. The easiest way is to have your dog in a crate. That will prevent 100% of your dog jumping up on anybody. But that's probably not what the intention of the question is, but that is one way to prevent a dog from jumping. What's another way to prevent a dog from jumping? Well, another way to prevent a dog from jumping is by simply having your leash in your hand. One thing that happens to a lot of families is, one spouse or the other is coming home and the other one's already home. And we kind of roughly know the time that everybody's coming, but the dog is loose. And then the dog is loose, you walk in the door, and then you're all of a sudden getting jumped all over on by your dog. So if that's happening to you, the easiest way to actually prevent it is have your spouse put the leash on the dog, get on a short leash, and then, hold the leash down by your side and make the dog hold that position. And as you do that, that's going to prevent your dog from doing that. But here's the real thing. I think that the person that was asking this didn't want to prevent the dog from jumping up, but wanted to teach the dog not to jump up. And again, teaching goes about showing the dog the difference of its decisions. So, very simply put, when the dog jumps, there should be no reward, and there should be some form of pressure. It could mean that you move more into the dog. It could mean that you tighten the leash. It could mean that you pop the prong collar. It could mean that you hit the firmer button on the remote collar. It could mean any one of those, but you got to pick the one that's right for your individual dog. But then the thing that really teaches the dog to not jump on people is not telling the dog no for jumping. It's when the dog actually chooses not to jump, and you begin to reward them with the leash or leash free, so that way they can understand, oh, when there's no pressure on me and I'm by your side, this is what you want me to do. So as you're thinking about it, I'm looking down at my questions, and I've got another one very similar. Where should I put my dog on Halloween night when I have all these trick-or-treaters coming? Well, you could do one of two things. If you've been training with us, you should train your play stay. Have your dog on their place near the front door, but far enough that if they make a mistake and come off, that you can put them back before they get out to jump on the kids. But if you want to try something a little bit more advanced, you could teach your dog that they're to stay at your left-hand side the entire time. So what I'd recommend in your handling is that you would use your left hand, okay? You would use your left hand, you would have your leash there, okay? And then you would use your right hand to be able to hand the kids the candy or any of those types of things, okay, as you're greeting them, but your dog has to hold the stay. Okay? So very, very important there that you actually have a specific thing that you're asking the dog to do to be able to realize, where in the world should I be? Hey, and Halloween night's a great night to practice. You're going to have all these kids. You can make a plan, and you can begin, maybe, if there's two of y'all, okay? One of y'all can deal with the kids, and the other one can deal with the dog, teaching the dog, like, hey, this is how I want you to act at the front door. That's a great opportunity. And then y'all could switch through the night showing the dog how to do that. All right, hey Mike, I see that you've got a question. So I'd like to exercise my dog, but can't do off leash at the park yet. What are some tips to wear him? Let me finish reading them. To wear him out. How can I teach fetch? He's good at keep away. The thing is I really love how you phrased your question, Mike. How can I teach fetch? Okay, so it's a difference between a possession game and a non-possession game. So let me get a little bit more realistic. So tonight we have a basketball game going on, and we also have a baseball game going on. In the basketball game, in the football game, in the soccer match, those are all possession games. So your dog is telling you, like, hey, I want to play a possession game. So that's part of it. Okay, this is what your dog wants to do. The single quickest way to teach the dog a possession game is to create boundaries. And the easiest way to create boundaries for a dog is with your leash. So anytime that that your dog's trying to keep away from you, and you can anticipate that, put your leash on the dog. We've got several videos on our Facebook wall, and I think I'll put another one together because this is a pretty common question of how to actually teach your dog the boundaries and how to ask for them to give you the toy back. Now, the way that I actually teach the dog fetch, I've got a multi-tiered strategy for teaching this, but the very easiest way I teach them is with the game that I call the treat toss game. In the treat toss game, I get their food and I put their dinner inside of my treat pouch, and then I have the treat pouch on the front of my body. Okay, I have the treat pouch open, I have their dinner inside the pouch right there. It's on the front side of my body. And then what I do is I take a bunch of food and put it in my left hand, and then I take one piece at a time and I toss it away from me. When I toss it away from me, I'm generally tossing the food at the front door, because the nature of the front door will turn the dog around, which is the thing that I want. So I toss it, they get the piece of food in their mouth, I call their name, and then when they turn around, because there's nothing left to do at the door, and they start coming back to me, then I heavily reward them from doing that. I will probably put about 200 to 300 repetitions of just doing that back and forth, back and forth. Then what I do, and I'm looking over, I think I have it right here. Yeah. Then what I do is I take this toy. I'll take this toy right here, but I'll take 2 of them, and then that same place that I was tossing the food back and forth and calling my dog to bring it back, I will take 2 of these identical balls right here. I will throw one. When the dog gets it, I will and then encourage them to come back to me with the second one. When they bring that one back, then I toss it back, and then I begin to create the cycle that I'm looking for. At some point in the future, and for a lot of folks it's in the near future, you don't actually have to have 2 balls, you just do one. You throw it, the dog goes out and gets it, but you have to give the dog a reason to come back to you. If you think about it, the dog's like, oh, having the ball in my mouth, it's just the greatest thing ever. So if you just throw the ball, they get it in their mouth, and then the only thing that you're going to do is take it away from them. They don't really see the value in that. So showing them that you have a second one, putting a lot of motion into that, they come back, you throw it, and then you start an exchange, at least for a little while, will make it easier. But start with food, because the food can build the pattern of out and back, where the ball, you're going to be a little bit more challenged. You're going to have to be a little bit more patient if you start with the ball first. But I'll just tell you, I really like this ball. These are the Everlasting, I think it's Everlasting Fun Ball. And if it's not the Everlasting Fun Ball, it's the Everlasting Treat Ball. And what I do for puppies is I put food inside of that cavity. I put food right inside that cavity right there. And then they have to kind of play with the ball to get it to come out. And that really builds a nice association. And I'll get a couple of these. I go through these, I renew these maybe once every month or once every couple of months with my own dogs as we play fetch with them. But it's a really, really nice ball. Pretty tough to destroy. It's going to last a little bit longer than your general tennis ball. Hey Rob, thanks for joining us tonight. Really appreciate you being here on the show. Hey, for those of you guys that are watching right now, if you could do me a favor, it means so much to me if you would go down there and hit that share button, let your friends know. But if you have any specific questions that you would like to ask, hey, I would love to answer your questions. All right, so I really don't have a question right here, but I just want to give you a little bit of a commentary about something that recently happened. One of the dogs that we're training with right now, very nice dog, but he's having some issues with aggression. And so we've already kind of completed his basics, and he's doing pretty well, actually. But the big thing for him is that whenever he's going out into any public places where people are going to really come in very, very close, he does have a tendency to lunge and to want to bite those people. It's been pretty problematic for his owner to go to the vet clinic, but we're working on those. So some of the things that we're doing is we've conditioned the dog to wear a muzzle. The dog actually really enjoys the muzzle. One of the really nice things that his owner did for him is that when they started muzzle conditioning him, they would take him to Starbucks and they would give the dog a puppuccino, and he was just really, had all this whipped cream all over the muzzle and just loving it. So it's very easy to put the muzzle on the dog, and he's really, really enjoying that. But the other thing they started doing is they started taking him out into public where there's not too many people and begin to show him, one, how to move together, and that, hey, we're going to advocate for you when you get a little afraid, but that you can't become aggressive. And then the last thing that they're really doing, that's part of the very basic training, is they're teaching him how to stay on his place anytime that we're in public. So I just want to give you a little bit of update on that. This dog today, actually yesterday, went to the veterinarian and struggled, but it was encouraging to me, the message that I got from his owner, because his owner ended up saying, like, man, having the muzzle, having the leash, teaching him how to be on his place made it so much easier for me than the times that I had previously gone, because now I had a plan and we could build on. Now we are going to start him on a remote collar to begin to really help his mind to understand that lunging and trying to bite people isn't really an option. But these things that you've been practicing in your basic obedience, if you're struggling with a reactive and aggressive dog, they begin to pay off in your own personal confidence when you're going to deal with situations that maybe aren't all that easy. So getting involved in these skills, starting to show the dog that, especially if you have an aggressive or even a powerful dog, and teaching them how to deal with their anxieties or their power and how to really rely on you and not to be so anxious or to be so out of control can really go a long way to helping you. But, I look back and I'm just thinking right now about muzzle training. Muzzle training really, like, if people see a dog in a muzzle, they think like, oh man, I really need to avoid that dog. But it just means so much to me that people would put a muzzle on their dog and then begin to put them through a training program to help them really get their mind right about like, hey, the world really is a great place. So hey, just wanted to give a quick update on that. Okay. So this is another question that I got, that I actually came up with this question because I was watching it. I was in a training session with a different family and noticed this. So here's the question. How do I teach my dog to stay in their down if they just keep coming up and getting back down, coming up and getting back down, coming up and getting back down? So let me explain that. If your dog is the kind of dog that just gets up and down over and over and over, the first thing that you want to do, the first strategy that you want to deploy, is you want to begin to remove any of the reward that the dog has. So for example, let's say that you put the dog into a down, right? So the dog is in the down, and let's say the dog immediately pops up into a sit. If you put the dog back into a down and you give it a piece of food all in sequence, then you're going to actually be rewarding the dog for getting up. But if your dog gets into the down the first time that you ask it to, and then you begin to reward, I want you to reward maybe for 10 or 15 seconds if your dog is new to this skill. But then remove the reward. If the dog holds the down for another 15, 20 seconds, then come back and reward. Okay, so that's strategy number one. But we didn't use just strategy number one. We had to actually use two strategies, and it was pretty amazing to see what happened with his dog. So what we ended up doing with the dog is we used our leash, okay? We put some pressure down the leash, and we guided the dog into the down. I didn't say shove the dog or pull the leash real hard as I repeatedly yell down. We gently pressured the leash, put some pressure on the dog's neck to guide it into the down. And then when he went into the down and he held it, instead of offering him food, we gave the dog a neck to hip massage for several moments as it did that. That technique of petting the dog physically is actually going to do a better job of reinforcement for that particular problem than giving the dog food, especially this particular dog. So then, let's say you've put pressure on the leash, the dog goes into the down, you're petting, the dog pops up. Great. Guide the dog back into the down, they get back into the down, wait 3 to 5 seconds before you evaluate if you should reward again. But be real careful with food here. Now, one thing I like to mention is that, hey, we like to use clickers to train a dog. This is one time where if I have a dog that's oscillating back and forth from the down and the sit, the down and the sit, that I will not use a clicker. Here's why. A clicker is such a wonderful tool, but if, let's say, you click and something that you didn't necessarily like happened, let's say the previous 5 seconds or previous 3 seconds, there is a chance that your dog's brain is going to believe that it should do that more. So by getting the clicker out of the picture, showing the dog that every time you come up, we're going to put pressure, you're going to go into the down, and then when you hold it, we're going to begin to bring the reward, you will actually be better served at keeping the dog in the down than if you were deploying your clicker in those situations. So hey, really, I think that's a really useful tip. I haven't done this technique for that long, but I had been thinking about it, so it's one of the new things that we're doing, a new wrinkle for certain dogs, okay? One other thing I do want to mention before we end up wrapping up for the evening, I got just a couple of minutes more that I want to go. As I've been training for a number of years, I'm noticing that my techniques are changing. Some of them are still the same. Some of them are a little bit different. So if you ever go back through and start watching some of our videos, just understand that some of the things are maybe specifically for that family and that dog, but then also understanding that, hey, there's a lot of things that you can generalize that are going to apply specifically to you and your dog. But the best thing to ever do, in my opinion, and yes, this does benefit me, but the best thing to ever do is to get, if you're trying to improve your dog's relationship, get someone that has experience like me or any of the other dog trainers in our great city to lay eyes on your dog and to help you explain what's going on and how you can best set up the dog for success. So, hey, Mike, I see you have another question. Okay, this one's pretty good. Okay, so my dog has a lot of anxiety when his paws are groomed and nails are trimmed. How do we handle that type of anxiety? I've seen some really great videos, and this is something that I honestly need to do with my dogs as well, but I'm going to give you the solution. The first thing is if you're using a Dremel or if you're using any kind of nail clipper, don't make them special. And here's what I mean by that. If you're just bringing them out in those that's the only time the dog sees it, and it always leads to becoming uncomfortable, then yeah, your dog is going to try to avoid those things, just like anybody would, right? So what I recommend is probably for a couple of weeks, you're going to take the nail clipper or the Dremel, whatever tool that you're using to clip the nails, and every time that you feed the dog for the next week, I just want you to feed the dog a piece of food, and as they're eating the piece of food, just gently tap their nail, not even going to clip it, tap their nail with the food and make that association. I'm feeding you, I'm going to tap you, and then we're going to do that again. It's really, could you aim for 1,000 to 2,000 repetitions over the next 2 weeks? I know that sounds like a lot, but you're trying to rewire the dog's brain. But the anxiety is, if you just think about the anxiety, they're anticipating that bad things are going to happen. So what you've got to do is you've got to reverse what the dog is actually thinking, that every time that the nail trimmer comes out, that we play my favorite game or I eat my favorite food. One thing that I'll recommend, let me see if I can grab this real quick because it's not a bad thought. One thing that I recommend that you could do for your dog is bring in some novelty into the training, okay? And what I mean by novelty, maybe give them something that they've never had before. Give them something that they've never had before. And I'm going to find, there we go. That's the one that I wanted. Give them something that they've never had before when you do this. So that way they're like, wow, I didn't know that I could get something so awesome each and every time that we were going to, do this thing with our nails. But that could be said about anything, Mike, that, hey, here's the thing that the dog doesn't like, or maybe the dog's afraid of the leash or afraid of a person. If you teach the dog how to become calm and then they're getting fed while that thing is going on, they're going to build an association that, oh, hey, that's absolutely wonderful. So, hey, I put this link up right there. This link is to a food that I use that's very novel. It has very strong odor, but dogs find it super delicious. Okay, and you could maybe order that to be able to help your dog to understand, like, oh wow, the nail clipper and those types of things actually lead to a ton of rewards. So hopefully that's useful. Hey Estrelita, hope you're doing well. Thanks for joining in tonight. I was kind of hoping that you would be able to join in. Hey guys, I've only got one more thing on my list. If you have a question, now's the time to ask it. Okay, definitely don't want to leave a question unanswered. Okay, but we've covered a lot of great content tonight, so thanks to each and every one of you guys that's joined in. But the last thing that I want to go over is something that I talk about a lot in my private sessions, but I really haven't talked about it in these live shows. So, is my dog uncomfortable when they choke on a leash? This is such a great question. And so here, I'm gonna give you my answer, okay? The answer is maybe. And it really heavily depends on your dog. If you put a collar, any collar, I don't care if it's a choke chain or a super wide collar or a 3-inch collar, buckle collar, whatever collar you put on, and if you attach a leash to it, if you take your dog for a walk on that leash and your dog is choking against the leash the entire time, okay, your dog is not fundamentally uncomfortable, because the very nature of discomfort is to tell us to not continue to do that very thing. If this is your dog, you're not without hope, okay, because there's a lot of great ways to help your dog understand that you don't want them to pull on the leash, okay? But, okay, if your dog is wearing this and they keep choking themselves, you need to really reconsider which training tool that you're using and if that one is the right one for your dog. If you ever notice at the pet store, you go to any one of the aisles where the leashes and the harnesses are, there's all these different sizes, there's all these different widths, and there's all these different kinds of training tools and collars. And the reason is there's so much variety in the way that dogs deal with pressure. I've seen dogs that we make real comfortable beds for them, and they would just rather sleep on the cold concrete. I've seen other ones that are on that, you know, they can't wait to get inside and to jump on top of your bed. Each dog is uniquely different, and so knowing your dog and knowing which tool actually works for your dog goes a long, long way. So, is your dog uncomfortable? Is your dog uncomfortable if it's choking itself for 10, 15 minutes while you try to go for a walk? The answer is no. But here is really the more serious thing that you got to consider. If you're going for your walks and your dog is choking, and it's especially choking anytime it sees another dog, human, bicycle, skateboard, squirrel, any of those things, and you do this for long enough, you can injure your dog. So if your dog is choking for a prolonged period of time, please, please, please stop. No, your dog is not uncomfortable. They're tolerating it very well. It would change their mind, but please find a way to get that leash slack. If you can't find a way to get your leash slack, you need to harness your dog. But the downside to the harness, if you have a dog that triggers on other dogs, is that when the dog loads into the harness and you pull back on the leash, that's actually going to tell the dog to become more aggressive towards the thing that they're looking at. Well, guys, I don't have much else. Okay, admittedly, tonight I do want, like, I'm a sports fan. Okay, I want to watch the Astros and I do want to watch the Rockets. But I do want to make sure that I don't leave any of you guys hanging for a question. So hey, do you have a question? I'm going to take a couple of sips of water. I'm going to make sure that I haven't missed anything. But if you got a question, I'd love to hear it. All right, guys. So hey, thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate each and every single one of you guys. It means so much that you spent your night with me. Hey, if you haven't already, go down, hit the share button, give us a like, drop a comment or something. But man, those shares and those likes, those mean a lot to me. So hey, thanks again. Appreciate you all. Have a great night, and we'll see you soon.